justice. That's all I need. Justice for Alfred.
A call for peace, justice, and answers from the family of a man shot and killed by an El Cajon police officer. Homeless activists are talking about opening a new shelter in downtown San Diego. It could take as many as 800 people off the streets. And what hummingbirds can teach scientists about climate change. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Today, the family of Alfred Olango spoke publicly for the first time since he was shot and killed by an El Cajon police officer. They were demanding answers in the release of a cell phone recording of the shooting. KPBS Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero was there.
Just moments ago, the family of Alfred Olango congregated here at the National Action Network office in San Diego.
Olango's mother, Pamela Benge, gave an emotional speech expressing her grief.
Pain. It is so much that you cannot swallow it.
She says the family came to the U.S. to escape war-torn Uganda, seeking protection. She never imagined her son would be killed by police. But she insists she wants peaceful protests.
I'm always for peace. I don't want war. If you have seen war, you will never, ever want to step near.
She says her son was not mentally ill, just grieving the recent death of a friend, whose funeral was held a day after Olango was shot.
He was not mentally ill, never. He loved to play soccer. He loved family. Every time he jokes, he loves his daughter. He loved the daughter so much. Mommy, I love my daughter. I want her to be everything.
She says she hopes her son's death will inspire people to come together.
We are human. Yes. We are all one. That's right. No color, no red, no white, no black. We all have the same human. Humanity is what we would praise for. That's right.
They called for a National Day of Action on Saturday for Olango to demand the release of the full video. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The faith-based community is working in El Cajon to keep violence from becoming an issue. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says the religious community sees it as a chance to be a buffer between the public and police.
The East County's faith-based community feels the anger that surfaced after a black man was shot and killed by police this week. Confrontations were loud at times, with people shouting their displeasure at police wearing riot gear. Christine Griffin works with the faith-based San Diego Organizing Coalition. She spent time trying to keep the situation from spiraling out of control.
We were out there last night, and we didn't see rioters. We didn't see violent folks. We saw hurting folks, like we all are. That man was killed right in front of an apartment complex. Who could have seen that? Who would be whole? Who would be whole after seeing that?
The pastors and preachers say they understand the anger and they can feel that it's time for them to intervene in a positive way. Many promise to be visible if crowds gather to vent. Teal Carter is the pastor of Mount Catholic Pentecostal Church. He says they have a responsibility to the community.
The rioting, the streets, is only going to provoke more violence. It's not going to work. It didn't work in Ferguson. It's not working in Tulsa, where I'm from right now. We've got to get our citizens off of the streets. We cannot have them projecting our community as an angry, violent, kill the police community.
All of the leaders who gathered today say they need police in their communities, but they also question what happened in the shooting of Alfred Olango. The leaders are planning a vigil for the community on Saturday morning. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
The ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties is calling for transparency from the El Cajon Police Department and the San Diego District Attorney in regards to the shooting. The ACLU is asking that the entire video of the shooting be released, saying the release of just a screenshot makes it look like police are more interested in defending themselves than informing the public. The ACLU also wants information about how El Cajon police are trained to deal with people in mental crisis.
People really should be able to call the police when a loved one is in crisis and have faith that that phone call isn't going to result in the death of their loved one.
El Cajon's mayor says officers get psychiatric emergency response training. Alfred Olango's grieving mother had a message for demonstrators today. She said she appreciates the support and calls for justice, but asked people that want to honor her son be peaceful.
Thursday starts with candles and prayers for Alfred Olango.
Lord Jesus of all mankind, Lord, thank you, God.
In the El Cajon parking lot where he was killed Tuesday. It's a quiet contrast to what was happening here hours earlier. Hundreds of people came out in protest of the police shooting of the 38-year-old unarmed man. At times, demonstrators took their protest to the streets. Police blocked access to some residential streets and interstate entrance ramps.
You guys terrorize America. You guys terrorize everybody. Look at me, you.
Community activists worked to maintain peace and stop a repeat of the types of conflicts seen earlier in the day. One man was shoved and ran off after witnesses say he taunted the crowd with a Make America Great Again hat in support of Donald Trump. Police say the man appeared to have been injured but refused treatment. They're also investigating the theft of a journalist's camera. The demonstration continued into the early morning with no arrest or reports of property damage. El Cajon PD says it will continue to support the community's right to safely speak out, as long as it's done in peace.
We will continue to follow this story as it develops. Check KPBS radio and online at kpbs.org for updates. A homeless advocacy group in San Diego has a plan to house hundreds of people who are living on the streets. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
Nearly 5,000 homeless people across San Diego County sleep on the streets. Many are hunkered down on sidewalks in the East Village, where rows of tents are surrounded by soiled clothes and piles of garbage. Those wandering the streets with their overloaded carts are a mix of people with mental illness, drug addictions, and economic hardship. Shelter workers say emergency beds are full. Waiting lists are months long.
There's not an alternative to being homeless right now.
Bob McElroy is founder and CEO of the Homeless Outreach Alpha Project. He says the soaring street population has reached a crisis level. Now he has a plan to take as many as 800 people off the streets and put a roof over their heads. He's calling his proposed project a central intake center.
It's a place for women, a place for men, a place for families, a place for those folks who aren't ready to acclimate into a communal setting, like a dormitory type setting. They can still stay in their tents. There's a park area there. Will be designed a park area there where people can stay in their tents, but they'll be safe.
And they can bring their pets and their belongings. McElroy says they'll have medical clinics, addiction and rehabilitation services, mental health, Veterans Administration, Social Security, meals.
All the services will be provided in one spot to start the process of recovery while we wait for those permanent housing and supportive housing programs to open up.
He says the location of the center would likely be on city-owned land near downtown.
There's a couple sites we're looking at that are actually are acres big.
He says downtown businesses and community members are willing to help fund the project because they're overwhelmed by homeless living at their front doors. He's been talking to neighborhood committees about his proposal.
The people that would be so appreciative of the fact that we're actually doing something comprehensive would pitch in and help.
He says he has strong backing from city leaders, though he's not ready to name names. The mayor's office did not respond to a request for comment, but not everyone likes the idea.
Sinking a ton of money into this mega shelter that other communities are actually moving away from is like shooting ourselves in the foot. It's almost unbelievable that we're still stuck in the past in San Diego. It's really sad.
Homeless advocate Michael McConnell spoke to us by phone from Denver, where he's meeting with homeless outreach groups. He says permanent supportive housing is the only proven solution.
We already have 1,566 emergency shelter beds in San Diego. If that was the solution, then we would have been solving homelessness a long time ago.
Convincing some of the homeless to go into a large shelter could be a challenge. Many have survived the streets for years and they're comfortable with their lifestyle. KPBS recently talked to people living on 17th Street about why they decline shelters.
I don't really like living indoors. It's a lot healthier out here.
But honestly, I'm doing my own program and it's working for me, and I'm out the way.
I despise bed bugs. They irk me. When I know they're there, I can't sleep.
Sinead Law is newly homeless. She says she's on several waiting lists.
For St. Vincent de Paul, for Rachel's, for VOA.
So how long is the waiting list?
I don't know. They say they don't know.
McElroy says the homeless will come to the center because they know him and trust him.
We ran the winter shelter program in San Diego for 18 years, and all those folks there would come because it's low barrier, it's safe, it's nurturing, and 87% of my staff are all people who have been there and done that.
His winter tents housed 225 people up until 2015 when the city replaced the temporary shelter with a permanent year-round facility at St. Vincent de Paul. His proposed central intake center would house 4 times as many people. He hopes to open the center within a few months.
If the powers that be say, Bob, let's go do it, we're going to go do it. The providers are on board, the community's on board. The residents of downtown, the business owners of downtown are on board.
McElroy agrees permanent housing is needed, but that could take years. He says people need help now.
And that's what our job is to get our folks back into having some quality of life.
Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
An agency serving San Diegans with Parkinson's disease says it's suspending operations tomorrow because of lack of donations. The Parkinson's Association provides programs, education, and other services for some 40,000 people. The agency says it's cut expenses to the bone, but hasn't been able to raise enough money. The U.S. Secretary of Defense was in San Diego today to continue the administration's push to put more forces in the Pacific Rim. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter was in San Diego aboard the USS Carl Vinson before he heads to Hawaii to visit with Pacific leaders. The topic? Continuing that pivot to the Pacific that was started a couple years ago under the Obama administration.
Our 25th Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter.
Calling this Phase 3, Carter told the crowd of sailors on the flight deck to expect U.S. ships based in the Pacific to deploy even more frequently. Also, expect more joint search and rescue missions. The U.S. plans to collaborate with Pacific partners in several areas, including cyber warfare.
Because the network is so rich with nations with cyber expertise, including Japan, Korea, India, and Singapore, as each of our countries develop their cyber capabilities, we can learn from each other and cooperate together.
The idea itself isn't new. For nearly 5 years, the U.S. has had a plan to base 60% of the fleet in the Pacific by 2020. It has meant an increased number of ships and an increased tempo for U.S. forces, including those in San Diego. Reporting from San Diego Bay aboard the USS Carl Vinson, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Thousands of felons in California county jails will now have voting privileges after Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill into law this week. Proponents of the measure say it will help reduce recidivism by engaging inmates in civic participation. Under current law, felons in state or federal prisons are not able to vote. The law alters California county's criteria for who can register. The governor also signed a bill to develop an earthquake early warning system. It will be called a Shake Alert. The systems are designed to detect the first shock waves of a big quake and then calculate the strength and send out warnings before the slower but more damaging waves start to spread. Mexico, China, and Japan already have these kinds of systems. Governor Jerry Brown is making sure Californians are set for retirement. He signed a landmark retirement bill into law today. Reporter Caitlin Lewis says the new bill makes the state potentially responsible for millions of private sector retirement plans.
A burst of applause from lawmakers ushered in the state's attempt to address a growing fear that millions of Californians aren't ready for retirement. Under the secure choice, employers that don't offer retirement accounts must automatically enroll employees in this state-run plan. Unless workers opt out, a percentage of each paycheck would be taken out and held in low-risk investments. Legislative leaders and Governor Jerry Brown called the bill the right move for a secure future.
It's about offering retirement savings opportunities to hard-working Californians so they can build savings over their lifetimes and retire with dignity.
Also, something very important in today's age of spend now, worry about it later. This is save now and prepare for later.
Advocates for the plan say now nearly 7 million Californians without a retirement plan will have the choice of a safety net.
When somebody's on Social Security, and if that's all they have, it's about $1,200 a month, and that's what they live off of. So we want people to have an additional option so that they can supplement their Social Security.
Opponents to the plan doubt its effectiveness, though. They say the financial burdens already facing California's low-income workers will lead them to either opt out or withdraw balances early. And for Californians already living in retirement, the argument is simple. The younger generation should learn how to take care of themselves.
As I grew up, if I couldn't pay for it, I didn't buy it. Now, my kids, on the other hand, if they have a credit card, forget it. You know, they'll have their credit bills, they'll be outrageous.
The plan's cost to the state is unclear. It depends on how many employees actually choose to participate. Reporting at the Capitol, Caitlin Lewis.
California's Treasurer John Chung has cut ties with Wells Fargo. Chung says the state will no longer do business with the bank. That means no more investing in the bank or buying stocks or bonds. These sanctions take effect immediately and are set to last a year. Wells Fargo stands accused of defrauding millions of customers.
So we need to make an important statement to Wells Fargo. Get back to your original mission. Reevaluate your values. Your values ought to be about helping Californians.
The state still does business with Wells Fargo in two areas. Local governments will still use Wells Fargo's to wire money, and two public pension funds are still handled by the bank. This year's presidential campaign has underscored an economic paradox. Financially, Black Americans and Hispanics are far worse off than whites, yet people of color are more likely than whites to believe in the American dream. Associated Press reporter Carrie Antefinger has more in a continuing series called Divided America.
Joe Jennings and his wife Nancy have been taking odd jobs to help make ends meet since the recession.
I was making 60% more money than I'm making now.
Jennings, a telecommunications electrician, has seen his work become less specialized or go to workers overseas.
I saw the talent and the economic growth and power that this country has had, and I'm watching it shrink. We are headed in the wrong direction.
His pessimism isn't unique, particularly among white Americans. In an AP NORC poll from this June, 40% of whites thought America's best days were ahead of it, compared to 62% of blacks. Even though many blacks are far worse off economically, minorities are also more optimistic about their future.
Now I'm just going to have to wipe it up now.
Take Christine Ricks, a substitute teacher who runs a youth community center, mostly on her own dime. She recently graduated from college with degrees in social work and community engagement, along with a lot of student debt.
I'm so poor, it's I can't even be ashamed anymore. But I'm going to be okay. I really believe that I'm going to be okay because I've been okay so far.
The disparity between minorities' optimism and whites' pessimism has helped define the election. Republican Donald Trump has appealed almost exclusively to whites, including the Jennings family.
We are going to make America great again.
Meanwhile, Democrat Hillary Clinton has struck a more optimistic tone.
I have so much confidence and optimism about our country.
Historically, whites often polled as more optimistic about their prospects than blacks and Hispanics. But the shift began even before President Barack Obama's election in 2008, and it crosses party lines.
Obama's election accelerated this sense of optimism with a really steep increase among blacks and Hispanics between 2008 and 2010. And the Great Recession really spurred on and accelerated this sense of pessimism among whites.
There is one area, though, where blacks register as more pessimistic than whites: race relations, and policing.
I think this whole system needs to be re-examined in how we deal with justice.
But Larry Davis still has hope for the youth because of his own past. He grew up in the foster care system and was homeless as a teen. Now 27, he's working toward his master's degree in public health policy and volunteering with young people.
Look at the 300, 400 years of America, look at the suffering and the pain of the people. So I remain optimistic for that purpose because I know that they fought, they resisted, or they survived and educated so that I can move forward and continue to help people.
But the future is what worries Joe Jennings.
I'm afraid that our very way of life, our very wonderful opportunities that this country gives you will not be there for when my little guys get older.
Those hopes and fears, a driving force behind this election. Carrie Andelfinger, Associated Press, Milwaukee.
Mild temperatures along San Diego's coast while warmer weather is expected inland. Heather Waldman has tonight's forecast.
Well, it's been a very warm week so far for Central and Southern California, and it looks like the week is going to end that way as well, with a breeze coming more off the land rather than the water. It's not quite as intensely hot today as it was, say, late last week into early this week, but temperatures certainly still not very fall-like. Notice off to the east, a little bit of moisture coming up from the south, leading to scattered showers and thunderstorms along I-10 into the Phoenix area. So if you've got a flight into or out of Sky Harbor, there could be some delays through the rest of this afternoon into the evening. Temperatures will stay in the 70s in the metro area tonight, with once again just a few clouds. The rest of San Diego County a bit above average. Even into the mountains, temperatures will be in the mid to upper 50s tonight. Mount Laguna will stay at 47 degrees, 67 at Borrego Springs. Coastal areas generally mid-60s to lower 70s, with the highest temperature being right in the downtown area. Still a strong southerly breeze into the day Friday. That means plenty of warm air for Southern California, but cooler air is on the way. This front is going to continue to move eastward. As it does so, it's going to bring that more comfortable air in behind it. Spotty thunderstorms do continue for the Four Corners. We're not going to see any bit of that moisture. All we get is a little bit of that marine layer from LA into the San Diego area as well. So watch for those patchy low clouds to start the day. For some, they could be lingering later into the afternoon, but generally at the coast the next couple of days, just a few clouds. Temperatures will be in the upper 70s to low 80s. Here comes that front Sunday into Monday. Notice the temperatures are about 5 to 10 degrees cooler to start next week. Cloudy in the morning on Monday, then seeing more sunshine later on in the afternoon. Temperatures will be coming down inland as well, near 90 on Friday, lower 80s for the second half of the weekend, so Sunday probably the best day to get outside. Then mid-70s on Monday with some more stubborn clouds, a little bit of sunshine peeking through later on in the afternoon. Out into the mountains, it's going to be a little bit chilly here on Monday, only 55 degrees in the wake of that front, so enjoy the 70s this weekend. Overnight lows will be close to freezing in some spots as well. We'll recover back into the mid-60s for the day on Tuesday. Your final stop takes us to the deserts. Close to the triple digits on Friday, very summer-like with plenty of sunshine. That sun will, of course, make it feel even warmer, so just use common sense. In the middle of the afternoon, you want to avoid the peak daylight hours. Temperatures will even stay in the mid-60s there Friday night. Upper 50s expected on Saturday. But here as well, that front starts to move through this weekend. Not a lot of wet weather with it. Instead, mostly a change in wind direction. Not nearly as warm on Monday with a high of 80 degrees. That sun should feel nice and comfortable. Heather Waldman, KPBS News.
I'm Gwen Eiffel. On the next news hour, a report from Afghanistan on how the lives of women have changed after years of war. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
This time of year, hummingbirds make their way south through the U.S. to Mexico, where they spend their winters. Experts are tracking the birds and their migration as a way to measure the impact of climate change. And as Cronkite News reporter Katie Bieri shows us, volunteers help with the effort.
Hummingbirds are amazing little birds.
They're smaller than the palm of your hand.
They really have a charisma much larger than their tiny size.
And quick. faster than a jackal. This time of year, the Southeastern Arizona Bird Observatory studies these hummingbirds and their migration patterns.
They drew us in and we got fascinated with them, and now we've been banding them here on the San Pedro for 21 years.
We will trap some birds.
Volunteers humanely capture these small creatures.
I push this lever all the way up and the net will fall.
And they meticulously place a band around the leg of the hummingbird to track it. People come from all over Arizona for the chance to hold a live hummingbird in their hand. Cool. Emily Tucker and her family drove from Chandler to celebrate her 8th birthday.
It is a tremendous privilege to have an opportunity to be so up close and intimate with these tiny little creatures.
Sherry Williamson, a nationally recognized hummingbird expert, hopes that these visitors feel a connection and a commitment to conservation.
They're brightly colored, they have eyelashes, they become very comfortable in people's hands. And there he goes.
Hummingbirds, being migratory birds, are among the hundreds of species that connect different parts of our world with one another.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.